You're listening to the Skeptics Guide to the Universe, your escape to reality.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptics Guide to the Universe. Today is Monday, May 25th, 2026, and this is your host, Stephen Novella. Joining me this week are Bob Novella.
Hey, everybody.
Cara Santa Maria.
Howdy.
Jay Novella.
Hey, guys.
And Evan Bernstein.
Happy Monday.
Yeah, rare Monday
Memorial
recording
Day.
for us.
What the hell? Monday? What are we doing here on Monday?
Unusual.
Well, we're going to Wisconsin this weekend. This was the only night we could record early enough to get the show done before the weekend.
Correct.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Here we are.
And, we're here. We're actually here already. If you're listening.
If you're listening to it, yeah.
Time travel.
Yeah, so have any of you guys specifically been to Wisconsin before?
No, but
I
I've
have.
had their cheese.
I don't think so.
I've been only when it was winter, so it was cold.
Oh gosh, that had to be
So,
freezing.
I've never seen summer in Wisconsin. You know how I remember sometimes where I've been is I go to my photo app in my phone and I search for the place. And I see how many pictures I took there. Yep, there's some.
Yeah, I've been to Milwaukee, Chicago, Minneapolis.
Well,
I've been to Madison.
well, but
Chicago's in Illinois.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying in that
The region,
area,
yeah.
No, I
The
got
region.
In the Midwest.
But I've never been on any of the lakes. I've never been on them.
Oh,
I've
me
only
neither.
flown over
Yeah, I
them.
haven't either. I don't even remember flying over any. But
When would you
probably
even
did.
go? When would you go over one of the lakes? Like who travels the lakes and
You
why?
mean by boat?
Travels them?
Yeah, by the boat. Why? Why would people
Commerce,
do it?
man. Commerce.
Yeah. I mean,
You got to
yeah.
go all the way around Lake Michigan and just cut right across it.
oh, that's true.
Yeah, but if you're sending anything over there, you might as well be a lot cheaper. Just pure expense of just shipping it instead of trucking it all around.
Yeah, but aren't there, Bob, I'm looking at the map too. Aren't there just like bridges?
I don't know. It's
Over
pretty
some
far,
very
isn't it?
narrow
No,
points.
it's too big for
these
bridges,
lakes
man.
are enormous.
Really? It's too big for bridges?
The
the
main
I-10.
girth, the main width, sure, but I'm sure there's smaller areas with plenty of bridges.
Bob,
The
tell me
I-10
more
looks
about
like
the
it goes
girth.
straight across Lake Michigan. I don't know if it goes over or under, but
Do you guys know why there are lakes and not seas?
Because they're freshwater.
That's
because
one.
they're inland.
Because they're surrounded by land.
Well, so can a sea. They're fresh water. They have a natural
Water.
outflow to the ocean, and one that's not really intuitive. They sit significantly above sea level.
Oh, okay.
Significantly.
Oh,
okay.
interesting.
I thought it was all about size.
about
I
that.
guess it isn't.
It's not just about size. It's never
Not
just about size.
So Michigan is kind of like a little, well, it's not really an island. It's like a peninsula.
I
Is
never
it not
thought
an
about
isthmus?
It looks like a hand.
Be my lucky.
You ever met somebody from Michigan and they go, where are you from? And they point to their hand.
Right.
That's like how they know.
There's
Really?
an island. There's an island in Lake Michigan, and it's called Beaver Island. It's pretty big.
A lot of
Pretty big.
seals live.
I wonder if people live there.
Probably because that looks huge.
Well, gosh,
But,
I mean, beavers were one of the main reasons why people settled the area initially for the beaver
For the fur trade?
Right?
It's a huge beaver trade, yeah.
It was enormous. It was so many.
what-
There had to be
There's a-
billions of beavers.
There's an airport on Beaver Island.
What?
Yeah.
Beaver
And I-
International Airport.
And I'm like literally zooming in, and I'm like, okay, there's like houses that go, along the coast, but it doesn't seem to be like. It just doesn't seem to be like a lot of people here.
Wait, is Beaver Island part of Michigan or is it part of Wisconsin?
Oh, interesting. Probably Michigan. I
don't know.
think.
I don't know. It's
I
like right
gotta
in
look at-
between them.
I need
Yeah.
to zoom in on this.
I think like
map.
the state line goes down the middle of Lake Michigan.
Yep, it's not.
That's
they're
what
not a
those
part of
yeah,
it.
that's what those lines are.
It does.
Interesting.
So Beaver Island is Michigan. Yeah, I see that.
Maps.
My
But we're
guess.
not going to Michigan. We're going to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes, but Wisconsin
no-
is surrounded by the Great Lakes.
Yeah, I didn't know Wisconsin had a little border with Lake Superior. Guys,
Oh, it does? Up north, huh?
I read about Lake Superior not too long ago, and I actually got a little scared. It
You
is-
should.
It's more of a beast than I ever imagined. Right here, I'm looking at an overview here. It's like Lake Superior is exceptionally dangerous.
Yes.
They're
Why is it
describing
dangerous?
Well, they're
'Cause it's
describing it as it behaves like an inland ocean. let's see, temperamental weather,
Oh,
hurricane
yeah, don't they have? It
force
doesn't have
winds,
waves.
unpredictable
Absolutely.
and massive waves.
Wow.
It sunk the Edmund Fitzgerald, that from the 1875, which is an enormous ship.
And the
kind of
water-
like Titanic size almost.
Do
And you
people
don't
surf
want to
there?
fall in that water.
Yeah.
It's saying here that the annual average is 40 degrees Fahrenheit. You fall in there, it won't take long before
Yeah,
you are
that's
done.
30 seconds and you're
I
probably
mean,
toast.
just it says here after a few minutes you lose fine motor control. I think that's underselling it. I think 40 degrees is some nasty. That will suck the heat out of you.
Yeah.
But Bob,
bad.
you want to know something about Lake Superior?
Yeah, what is that, Jay?
It's very far away from Connecticut, so you should not be scared.
Yeah.
No, but we're going to Wisconsin, and
We think Lake Superior is going to crawl across the land and suck us into its
I
depths.
would like,
Well,
I would like to go on it. I
couple
want to
hundred
go
miles
on it,
south.
and I want to see it because
Bob likes being scared, though.
he does. Yes, Bob, you do have a
Bob.
fetish.
fear minus death equals fun.
Yeah, but this could be death. There's a whole group of people who surf Lake Superior.
Oh wow!
Yeah, this is so cool. They're freshwater surfers.
They must wear dry suits for that.
Now, I could do that because there's no sharks.
Yeah, there's
Are
no
you sure
sharks
there are
in
no
Lake
sharks?
Superior.
No sharks in Lake Superior.
Yeah.
Okay.
But still some death.
Oh yeah.
If a creature like the Loch Ness monster were to exist, it would be in a lake more like this rather than Loch Ness, which is so tiny compared.
Is
to
there a
Tiny
cryptid
but
in Lake
deep.
Superior?
That's
like
a
it
great
a lot.
question. Let's find
Let's see.
out.
Great Lake cryptids. There've got to be.
I bet.
Jay,
there's gotta
are
be.
there any freshwater sharks?
There better not
Yes,
be. That's what I'm
there are.
saying.
There are
cra-
river sharks.
They're a
River
thing,
sharks.
yeah.
How are we not
Yes.
hunting these bastards down right now?
Evan.
Mainly, they're rare, mainly in Australia and Southeast Asia.
Of course they're in Australia.
Evan, Lake Superior's monster is called Pressy.
Pressy.
Yeah.
How great is that?
So Lake Erie has South Bay Bessie. Lake Superior has Pressy. Superior and Huron have an underwater panther.
An underwater panther.
Yeah, these are like indigenous legendary, creatures. And then Ontario has a plesiosaur-like creature. Yeah.
Neat.
So we've got our own versions here and we never even talk about
Oh my God.
Why?
Guys, river sharks specifically. Listen.
Can't get over the sharks.
I'm Googling in the back.
Of course I am. River sharks, specifically bull sharks, are highly dangerous and are widely considered one of the 3 most dangerous shark species to humans. So swimming in fresh water is more dangerous.
Is there a non-dangerous shark?
Yeah, but river sharks live in Asia.
Plenty. Most of them are absolutely fine. Absolutely
You sure?
fine.
But Kara, follow the
I
movie
am
the movie plot here.
totally
Someone from
sure.
Australia brings them to Lake Superior. Bob goes out on a boat ride. The captain got drunk. The boat hits a rock. Bob's tipped overboard, and a river shark comes and eats his left leg.
Yeah, he was keeping them in their tank, and they got tired of him, flushed them down the toilet. They went into the lake
Yes. And
where
there
they
you have
grew
it.
unlimited size because of how big the lake is.
Yeah, like
It
goldfish,
is a
right? They grow
big
to the
food
size
source.
of the bowl.
Yeah.
Whoa, a bull shark was found in Alton, Illinois, Jay.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Look, man, you can't go in any body of water.
It's like
Jay.
sewer alligators.
Jay, here's one that evolved into a walking shark. It walks over land.
Land shark.
That's a land shark. Man.
Come on. All right, now we're getting silly. All right, guys, I have a what I learned today for you.
Okay.
Gather round, kids.
Another one. Gather round.
This is I don't know, this is a little silly and it's kind of small, but I just something I didn't fully wrap my head around until recently.
Sounds personal.
So I'm going to ask you, Kara, to start. Explain to me exactly how toilets flush.
Exactly how? Well, I had
Yeah.
to replace the thingy in the back of my toilet recently.
Very technical.
So there's a tank in the back of the toilet,
Right.
and it holds water. And when you hit the little flipper thing, a stopper comes up and the water goes out of that tank.
That's right,
Yeah.
Stopper.
That's right, stopper. And somehow that also makes the water disappear out of the toilet bowl. And then when the water level is low, the stopper closes on itself
Yeah.
because gravity, and then it refills slowly, and that also refills the toilet bowl.
The bowl. Right.
Yeah.
Wait, but
Yeah.
Steve, I know what you're getting at.
Yeah, do you? Well, then hold on to it. I want to know if Evan has anything to add to that.
Wouldn't it be when you add water? Okay, so you start with water in the bowl, and then when you're flushing it, you're adding more water to it. Now, doesn't that cause the water to then force downward through the pipe out? Right?
Yeah,
off the S curve or whatever they call that piece.
Yeah,
and so it's the addition of the tank water to the bowl water is the is
that
the
makes the
flush.
thingy open.
Well, what open, Kara?
The thingy in the back.
What thingy in the back?
When you flush,
yeah,
it
that's
pulls
emptying the tank
chain.
into the bowl,
Yeah, that empties the tank into the bowl.
and then the bowl empties how?
Into the ocean.
Yeah, into wherever it's going to go. Yeah, what you guys are saying is all correct, but you're missing an element.
It's a partial vacuum siphoning type.
Yeah, there you go. That's what they're missing, right? Well, let's get to that in a second. So,
Well, this is how you could see it. Like, wait, if you're listening to the podcast right now, go into your bathroom and look
Some
at
of you
the
are already
side of
there.
your toilet. Look at the side. Now, if you have a regular toilet that isn't like $30,000 and blows hot air on you, you'll see that there's like you could see the pathway of the water on the side. Like
Yeah,
you can
like
see almost like the
coiled.
piping inside of the porcelain, and that has like a big turn in it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Bob, I hear you. I know what you're saying about the siphon. I don't know exactly how it works, but I know that it kind of just it keeps
All right.
pulling the water
Is it
after
kind of like
itself.
your lungs?
hang on. All right.
Like it's backward?
Yeah, so you're getting close. Bob said the magic words. Let me put it all together for you. But first, let me give you an
Suction, vacuum.
explanation why I was
I
thinking
know my
about-
shit.
I knew Bob would know. That's why I asked Kara.
Did your wallet get stuck in the
No.
S turn? This thing.
So this past weekend, I was opening. We have a small cabin on a lake in New Hampshire that we bought from my wife's cousin, right? Just
With
to keep it
cryptid.
in the family. And so we were opening. It's not winterized. So we have to, prepare it for winter. Then we have to open it in the spring. So we went up there to open it for the spring. And it's always a gamble, like what's going to be working, what's not going to be working. And this time, the one toilet was leaking. The tank was leaking around the water intake.
Oh,
So I replaced the intake just to see, because that's like a $20 part. It's nothing, right? And hoping that would fix it, but it didn't. So then I needed to call a plumber. So now I'm there with 4 women. That's that I mentioned that they're women because they were incredibly unwilling to do their business in the woods.
Oh, right.
Far
Yeah, that's
more
fair.
unwilling than I would have been. All right, but so the tank, I had to turn off the water and empty the tank. Flush the tank, just so that all that water wouldn't leak into the bathroom. But I said, listen, we could still use the toilet bowl itself is still working, and we could use it. We're near our lake, so we could get a bucket of water from the lake and do what's called a bucket flush. Have you guys ever heard
man.
of a bucket
Yes.
flush?
I've
Oh,
done
yeah,
it.
I've
I've
done
done
it
it
many
during,
times.
So you
Yeah,
add
done
that
it.
to the back?
during
or
a
to the-
power outage, during a
bowl.
nasty
Of course, you take the
power outage.
the water out of the tub and you pour like a 5-gallon bucket type situation into the toilet.
into the bowl.
In
into
my
the
case,
bowl.
I took the water out of the pool.
Right, not the tank, the bowl.
Yeah, I mean, if the flushing mechanism's working, you can put it in the tank. If you just have no water, but the toilet's totally working, you can put it in the tank and then flush normally.
Oh,
but
it's great, man.
I didn't want to put any water in my tank, so you just
Right, so it's
pour it
leaking.
directly into the bowl, and it flushes like a normal
does.
flush. And it does, but you have to pour it quickly. Why do you have
Yeah.
to pour it quickly?
or else it won't.
The
It won't.
force of the water, it must have.
So
You have
it's-
to get
so
it to a
it's-
certain.
Yeah. Okay. So let
One
me
cohesive
Just
Does it have
glob
to
of
break
water.
a seal?
let me put it all together for you.
Okay.
In a way that's I was like, when I was thinking about it, like, oh yeah, it was just more clear to me. I just never thought about it, in this detail before. So Jay's correct. You have the bowl, and then there's the pipe that goes up before it curls down, right? That's called the trap. And so
Jay.
the
Thank you.
water level in the bowl is the height of that pipe, right? Because water seeks its own level.
Yeah.
The water in the tank is closed off from the bowl by the stopper that Kara
Right.
mentioned, right?
That's right, Stopper.
When you flush the toilet, the water in the tank rushes into the bowl, and the weight of that pushes it up and over that hump, right?
Yeah.
Over
Oh, right,
that
'cause
S
it's
curve
like
in the
the-
pipe.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then-
it's like the top of a curve. So it has to drop
Yes.
past it.
Now, Bob is the only one to have mentioned the critical element there. Because the water is filling the pipe, as the water goes over the top and then down, that creates a suction effect, right? There's a vacuum behind the water which sucks the water out. It's like, when you suck water, gasoline or water through a hose,
siphoning.
and then you siphon it off, you let it run. It's the same exact thing.
Right.
That's why
Principle.
it's not just the water being forced down the pipe. It then gets sucked down the pipe. That's why when
Taking everything with it,
all goes not just back to the level. It all goes until it gurgles at the end, right?
So it works like lungs.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not. No, it's not really. It
is. It creates that vacuum, the low pressure vacuum.
But it's not expanding
with our lungs,
or anything.
It's air that rushes
There's no
in.
diaphragm.
In the toilet,
it's not expanding. It's a siphon. It is a siphon.
No, but I'm not talking about the actual mechanism there. I'm talking about how lungs fill due to that vacuum.
In that it's driven by a vacuum.
Low
sure.
pressure. Yep.
Low
High
pressure
goes to
causes
low
the air to
pressure,
follow. Low
But
pressure causes the water
this is the
to follow.
water. So so it sucks all the water out, siphons all the water down the pipe and everything with it until air gurgles in, and that breaks the vacuum. And then once that happens, the water settles back in. Then normally functioning toilet, the water will fill up the tank and fill the bowl back up to its normal height.
That's why you want to pour it in fast, get it all in there.
Exactly. So all you have to do is pour it in fast enough to force that water over the hump, and then siphoning will take care of the rest. It'll suck all the water out of the bowl of the toilet.
But the problem is if you don't pour it in fast, then you just overflow your toilet.
Well, it won't overflow. It'll just leak
slowly.
It'll drain over the hump, but it needs to go enough that you maintain the plug, right? You have to.
Right. So when toilets overflow, it's because there's a blockage.
It's blocked
in the edge.
Because it's blocked. So if it's not blocked, it'll just leak over the edge and never create that siphon effect. So you just got to do it. It's not that hard. You just got to do it fast enough that you get that a full plug of water goes over the pipe and then creates that siphoning effect behind it.
So theoretically, a river shark could be in your toilet.
It would have to be very small. Have to be very small. Newly born.
Newly born river.
So I didn't appreciate the critical aspect of the siphon effect until I had to trigger it without flushing the toilet. You know what I mean? Just trigger it by dumping water into the bowl. They're doing the bucket flush.
So the lesson here is
no one had to pee in the woods. That's the bottom line.
Okay, the women specifically did not have to do the things that they don't want to do.
Correct.
Okay, and did you come out looking good, or were they angry because it took too long?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was a day before the plumber got there.
Oh, so you were the hero.
Oh, man.
And how much did the plumber charge you?
I haven't gotten the bill yet, but it was definitely weekend holiday pricing.
Saturday.
Oh, man, you are done.
Oh gosh,
They love that.
Oh yeah, it was the pricing where they don't charge you right then. You get a big bill later.
Well, it's a longer story because the pump house also was broken, so he had to come out for 2 reasons, and that pump house serves me and my neighbor, so. We were both, and he's the neighbor's plumber because he's been there longer and it was his plumber. So while you're here, fix our toilet kind of thing. But we had to pay the whole vig for the weekend thing because that was the only reason why they were coming out on the weekend.
I see.
Oh.
Okay. Well, what are you going to do?
So we'll get a bill. But what are you going to do?
It happens. Real life happens. What are you going to do?
And what happened was the plastic flush mechanism cracked. And it's plastic. And he said, "Yeah, a little water." Here he goes. Here's your problem, right? A little bit of water was left in there. So when you winterize it, when you prepare your cabin for the winter, you got to get every drop of water out of every pipe, right? So you close every valve, you drain everything, and then you got to pour gallons of antifreeze down every pipe to make sure there's no water. Because if any water left behind freezes, expands, and breaks whatever it's in. So a little bit of water must have been left in there, and it just cracked over the winter.
Damn.
Which means you did a really bad job of winterizing your home.
What he said was you should disconnect the water intake before you leave. So we'll add that to our list of things to do.
I'll take that as
disconnect it. Not just turn the valve off. Disconnect.
Yeah, right. We were just turning the valve off, flush, emptying all the water, and then pouring antifreeze down. He said also disconnect it. Whatever. Okay.
Well, that is the ultimate safety. Yeah. Can't go wrong doing that.
All right, Kara, tell us about these autism clinics.
Oh, this is such an interesting story, and it's just getting deeper and deeper. So the New York Times did a big investigative report that they published on May 23rd, so just 2 days ago as of this recording, where they've published like a series of articles. One is very, very long form. One is sort of a takeaway. There's some videos that accompanying it, and they're all about autism clinics that are rapidly growing across the United States, apparently in Canada as well, and you do see some of them across the globe. Now, have you guys heard of an autism clinic?
Not at all.
Nope, I have not.
Right. So these are clinics that offer like pediatric occupational therapy, speech therapy, but most of them are fundamentally based in an approach to treatment called applied behavior analysis. And there's a lot of controversy around applied behavioral analysis. That is not really what we're going to be focusing on. We could do an entire different, day where we talk about applied behavior analysis, something that was developed specifically for working with children with autism and has kind of just grown and exploded. It is viewed as an evidence-based approach by most major organizations, but there are always, within each of these sort of major organizations, there are critics that argue that it sort of advocates for conformity. I guess that's a good way to put it, because it's based in behavior techniques, right? So the idea is in applied behavior analysis, children with autism are taught to do things like stop stimming or to engage in specific behaviors in order to fit in within the classroom environment, in order to reduce what are seen as, quote, problematic behaviors in public. And while sometimes it can be a godsend for families who are really struggling with certain difficult behaviors, the compliance component of it, a lot of individuals who obviously are advocates for neurodiversity movements are like, what's wrong with my kids stimming? The field itself, ABA, is actually evolving. It more focuses on independence and, happiness rather than complying with what is publicly deemed as, quote, appropriate behavior. That's not really what we're talking about, but that's the foundation of what happens in these therapy clinics.
Can I say, though, Kara, that the evidence really is not strong?
Yeah, I mean, I was about to just rip it a new one, but then I looked and I was like, every major organization does say it's an evidence-based treatment.
Evidence-based is not what it used to be. This is the whole purpose of science-based medicine is saying that evidence-based medicine is not enough because things like this get termed evidence-based. But when you look at the evidence, so it's poor blinding, high risk of bias.
And also, how do you define, there's a lot of problems with something. It's like, on the one hand, Steve, how do you define whether something like this works? On the other hand, you can't blind something so there are certain things where the evidence may not be as strong as we would like, but there's also, I worry that ABA falls in the camp like a lot of what I do, which is existential psychotherapy, where it's not as easy to do it.
Yeah, but I think that you're about to tell us why these stakes are pretty high here.
Yes, and that's true. The stakes are very, very high here. Especially because when I think about what I do in more existential orientations towards therapy, I'm often working with older adults. I'm working in end-of-life settings, and it's all about dignity and meaning and purpose. And, very often what we hear from patients is, this helps. I feel better. Yeah. Whereas with children, especially children who are maybe more severe on an autism spectrum, they may not be able to communicate if they're in distress or if something is not helping.
And a huge problem with this, I don't know if you came across this, but I've come across it in other contexts with treating kids, is that children improve as they age. And so everyone's going to get better, to some extent, whatever measure you use. And so if you're not adequately controlling for that, it's very easy to create the illusion that any intervention is doing something.
Absolutely. And what we've been talking about up to this point is an intervention like ABA done well, done by the books and done to the highest standard. Unfortunately, that is not what is often happening in these autism clinics. So it looks like the main takeaways here, they have to do with, of course, money, doesn't it always? And they have to do with, let's talk a little bit about potential harm. So why have we seen an explosion? I'm talking like thousands of these clinics opening over the past decade when, none or very, very few existed before that. Well, part of it is that there was a federal requirement that was passed that said that all state Medicaid programs, now remember, here in the United States, we have federal funding for health services that really comes in two major buckets. There are others as well. There's Medicare, which exists for individuals 65 or older. It's sort of our version of a universal health care, but it's for older adults. And then there's Medicaid, which typically exists for people who reach certain sort of financial thresholds. So individuals in poverty, and often a lot of the programs are dedicated towards children. Medicaid is interesting because it's a bucket from the federal government that goes to each state to be managed the way they
manage Medicaid.
Yeah. So like here in California, we call it Medi-Cal. We have our own program. It's partially funded by the federal government, but it's also very much funded by the state government.
Connecticut's called the Husky program, I believe.
There you go. And so there was a federal requirement that required that all state Medicaid programs pay for autism treatment, right? Which is a good thing. With kids need autism treatment, we got to make sure it gets paid for and it's not getting denied or rejected. The problem is an industry popped up around that saying, oh, there's dollars to be had. Let's see how we can extract those dollars. And guess who's investing? Private equity firms. So once this regulation passed and private equity firms kind of got in on this opportunity for billing, what the New York Times investigation found is that oftentimes the way that these services are billed and extracting as much money out of these government funds as possible seems to, I'm going to say sometimes, maybe often, I don't know if those numbers are in yet, but take priority over the wellness of the children. And so what are some of the major ways that they're doing it? Well, one is by overprescribing what are called hours. So I'm a government biller. I see patients in psychotherapy and I bill Medicare, different than Medicaid, but we also bill Medi-Cal here in California. And your CPT codes, the codes that you use when you're charging for services, are usually in different increments, like time increments. So I can do a 30-minute session, a 45-minute session, or a 60-minute session. But there are very specific cutoffs for that. So if I'm billing, for example, for a 30-minute therapy session, legally it has to be between 16 and 37 minutes long. If I am billing for a 45-minute therapy, legally it has to be between 38 and 52 minutes. And if I'm billing for a 60-minute therapy session, legally it has to be 53 minutes or longer. These are like very specific cutoffs that can mean the difference between getting reimbursed for your services or not. You have to bill them exactly correctly. Apparently, in a lot of these autism clinics, they are billed at the 15-minute increment. And there are some really interesting cutoffs. They tell a story about visiting a clinic where a child is napping and they're waking the children up just before the 7-minute mark. Because if they're asleep for longer than 7 minutes, they can't bill for that 15-minute increment.
Oh my gosh.
Because you can't bill while a child is asleep. You can't bill while a child is in recess. You can only bill while a child is in therapy. And so these clinics are serving in a lot of cases as de facto daycare.
Right.
But unfortunately, they don't have the same required oversight as most daycares. And they are also bringing in much, much, much more money because these are clinics where therapy is being offered. But we also have to remember that ABA therapy can be delivered by a psychologist, by a social worker, maybe even by a psychiatrist, but it can also be delivered by somebody with a high school diploma who went through 40 hours of training. You do not have to be a licensed provider to offer ABA therapy directly to children. And so what this investigation showed is that there are clinics across the country with surging spending that the actual coffers, the amount of money in the state budget for these Medicare programs is being taxed significantly. For example, they said last year in Colorado, their Medicaid spent more on care for children in autism treatment last year, specifically in therapy clinics, than for all emergency room care across the state. That's a big, big difference. And again, these people working with the children do not necessarily have a degree, and they don't need a specific license to do so. Obviously, there's a lot. We already mentioned some of the pushback against the therapy itself, the evidence behind it, the different organizations. For example, in Canada, this is covered by their healthcare system, but in the UK, the NHS won't pay for this. And here's another big one. More time means more money. So very often these clinics will prescribe standard therapy of how many hours do you think would be like a standard therapy for a child with autism attending a clinic? Evan, what would you think? Let's say across a week. How many hours a week do you think they would prescribe?
20 a week.
The standard has become between 25 to 40. So oftentimes parents are urged to keep their children out of school and to only attend these clinics.
Oh boy. That can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah. And sadly, it's kind of being positioned as an alternative to public school or an alternative to the type of support, which is already legally mandated and protected in public school. Now, listen, I know that there are parents listening to this. I know that there are people who have horror stories about not having their IEPs valued or respected within the public school setting. I know that there are parents who are going to these autism clinics with their children and they're seeing really good outcomes and they're really excited and happy that these are available to them. But unfortunately, the data are showing, and it's not really panning out, that across the board, that is the case. And very often, kids get the services that they need in a public school setting. But they're not spending, their governments are spending so much money in these private firms that are backed by private equity. And the kids are falling behind in school because of that. And unfortunately, I think time is really going to tell with some of these kids, because as I said, this industry has really popped up just over the last decade. So time is going to tell whether these kids are worse for wear, whether they're benefiting. And also the investigation showed a lot of examples of just like outright fraud, of outright abuse, which unfortunately, when you dig deep into any large industry, especially involving vulnerable children, sadly, that's what you're going to find. People are going to take advantage. There are going to be individuals that didn't get their background checks, that should never have been working in these clinics to begin with. For example, in Minnesota, prosecutors recently charged 2 clinic operators with fraudulently billing the government $46.6 million for either services they never delivered or straight up giving kids fake diagnoses in order to enroll them in their clinics.
Ooh, outright fraud.
Yeah, so we're starting to see more of a crackdown because this can be a massive source of Medicaid fraud, but it's another one of those examples of desperate people in desperate financial and emotional situations looking for help that feels like it's backed by science and by government oversight, and unfortunately being taken advantage of. And so be on the lookout, folks. If you do see these autism clinics popping up in your town, if you have kids that are enrolled currently or that you want to enroll, I just would highly recommend that you do some digging, that you're checking in regularly, and that you don't just make the assumption that because it has a shiny logo and it says all the right words and that the government is paying those Medicaid bills, that it's actually going about it the right way.
Yeah, I'm getting serious predatory vibes off of this whole industry.
Me too.
And it's triggering a lot of, to me, it feels very similar to the psychomotor patterning industry, which is just very, very quickly, just again, it's this very intensive treatment, hours a day, every day, with the promise that it's going to cure your child who has some developmental disorder, whatever it is, and based upon a really thin justification without good backing in science. And so this feels similar. First of all, the whole idea that we're going to use rewards to train these behaviors out of these kids sounds really simplistic, and I just don't like the one simplistic trick or hack that's going to cure this or significantly improve this complex problem. It has all of the issues with the psychomotor patterning industry where they're advising more and more hours that becomes all consuming. There's like little oversight, and the evidence base is mixed at best, is highly problematic, and is almost certainly not as good as the proponents are saying it is, just looking at the patterns of evidence.
And when we think about what is the specific ingredient here, is it the ABA or is it the fact that these kids are getting one-on-one attention all day?
Right. But they're also not getting schooling,
point,
which I think is probably going to have a bigger detriment.
They're not getting education.
Yeah, that's the social aspect of it all as well.
But you can see where parents get really stuck because, yes, their kids could be in daycare or they could be in school for 7 hours a day. But if they're in this clinic for 10 and 12 hours a day, now I don't have to pay for daycare. Right. Now I don't have to pay for after school care. They're getting everything they need and the state is paying for it. So it's actually a trap for a lot of parents who are struggling financially as well, because how could they not? And it really does remind me, Steve, I had a patient recently who asked me to dig in a little bit because they were getting basically predatory ads on social media. It's an older adult patient for these Medicare approved and Medicare paid, perfectly free to you, healthcare advocate companies where they'll help you navigate your healthcare system and they'll basically act as like a case manager for you. And I Googled some of these companies and everything I saw was like, this is a scam. It's just another way for these companies. They figured out how to charge Medicare for services and then fall short on delivery.
That's, you can't just make a bucket of money available without really strict controls and oversight and evidence and all that stuff.
Take advantage.
So that sounds like that's what happened here. Here's a bunch of money. It means well, and I'm not saying that these children don't need services and et cetera and can't benefit from interventions, but it just becomes a scam. You're creating the scam by just making all the money available without oversight.
Absolutely. And like my cynicism says, and I'm not saying this is a blanket, blanket statement, but the minute that an industry is developed that is sort of a helping industry, whether it's educational, healthcare, providing food to individuals who are food insecure. The minute that you see like a social justice oriented industry form and then private equity gets behind it.
Gosh.
I would say let's make sure that we're being really careful here.
Become the venture capitalists.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Thanks, Kara. Jay, I understand there's some problems with this climate change database.
Yeah, well, first off, let me ask you guys a question about, so you have climate change, right?
Yes.
What other things do you think about that are associated with climate change in your head?
Pollution.
Health.
I often think about, like environmental health.
People's health.
Do you guys ever think of any people in particular?
Well, people.
Climate refugees.
I'm talking about Al Gore.
Oh, refugees? Sure.
Right. I think Steve got it. So it's Al Gore, right?
Al Gore.
Oh, okay.
No, I think I have to say this because we have people who may not really remember or know who Al Gore is because they're too young. Al Gore was the vice president of the United States. He did run for president, and he lost. Right, that was a very contentious election, right? But he is very active, and he's an environmentalist, and he actually has done quite a bit of incredible work since his VP years. He created a documentary called An Inconvenient Truth back in 2006, which was for most people the first time they really heard about global warming and had some type of base understanding of what it is and what's going on. So Al Gore was recently named in some article titles here, right? Like, pulling him out from the past. This is making the rounds. You guys will probably see it if you've been looking at Science News recently. I'm sure that a lot of people have seen it. It says Al Gore founded climate pollution database. Was found with errors or whatever they say about it, but they're going to invoke his name and say that scientists have major errors with this Al Gore founded database or whatever. There's no reason to bring up Al Gore here whatsoever. right? First of all, so this it can't help it, but even with some reputable outlets here that are using his name, it's for to have political weight. And there's something that really bothers me about this, because during a time in human history when tons of people are only reading headlines, right? This is amazingly bad science communication. To not just to bring up his name, but to phrase this article with something that has to do with like scientists found major errors and there's like some type of like turmoil going on here or whatever. That isn't actually what's going on. If you read the article or you read the original source information, this isn't a big dramatic gotcha moment for climate, information, for anything to do with us measuring climate change. The denialists are going to spin this, right? And it's really frustrating to me because we're handing them, using this type of article against us. Because again, they'll tell other people, like they'll say, the climate data is garbage now. We have the proof and they're making it up and you can't trust climate science and all that nonsense. And they'll pass it around and they'll probably only communicate the name of these articles, which are saying, that scientists have, found major data errors in climate information.
So what's the relationship to Al Gore? You said there isn't one at all?
The only relationship is that Al Gore is associated with climate change, and he, at some point, I don't know if he personally backed this company called Climate Trace, right? This is the company that tracks global warming information, like the scientific data. And I think at some point he funded it or funded them or whatever, or was involved with getting them funding. Mm-hmm. He wanted to fund these organizations and scientists who are trying to collect the data that are going to give us a clearer picture of what's going on. There's no malfeasance here for him to have, been involved with getting funding to this company and probably a lot of other companies or organizations that are trying to, to wrap their heads around climate change. So the database that is being referenced is called Climate Trace, and its goal was to figure out where greenhouse gas emissions, are actually coming from around the world. And instead of relying on, where are the other places that we could get information from, like the average person or even people that are trying to... Right, governments, big companies that put out their own reports on things. Climate Trace was using like raw satellite information, machine learning, and other data sources to independently estimate emissions instead of having it go through, these potentially politically motivated sources that could skew data. Look at what's happening in the United States as an example. So there was a group of researchers at Northern Arizona University, and they compared Climate Trace's estimates for road vehicle carbon dioxide emissions in 260 U.S. urban areas against another database called Vulcan, which was doing the same thing. And Vulcan has a high-resolution fossil fuel CO2 emissions inventory, and they have their own ways of gathering the data. So the study that was published in Environmental Research Letters found that there was discrepancies between Climate Trace's information and conclusions and Vulcan's information and their conclusions. And according to the researchers, Climate Trace's city-level road emission estimates were, on average, how off do you think they were, guys, from Vulcan's?
20%.
Anybody else?
10%.
70%.
Yeah. Oh, that's not good.
70% lower. Like, this is like ding, 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 massive problem going on here. So, this isn't like a rounding error, like this is a core issue that they're having that is, some type of error is being introduced into this data and they had to figure out what it was.
What we call that in like most statistics, but definitely when we're doing like social sciences statistics.
What?
We call it convergent validity. So when you're looking at construct validity, like you want to know if a construct, like something you're measuring, is actually a valid measure of that thing, you look at two different ways, two different measures that are trying to yield similar results.
Yeah. And
when they give you wildly different results, you're like, maybe we don't actually know how to measure this thing.
Yeah.
We need to get better at that.
Well, so the researchers that looked into all this, they suggested that the problem may have come from issues with the machine learning model. And this included assumptions about how many vehicles there were, what kind of vehicles there were, how efficiently were they burning fuel, and how those factors, translated into emissions. It's really complicated. You have all this raw data and then you have to be able to process it. Now, there could be a problem with the raw data itself, and or there could be a problem with the processing, and the researchers were saying we think it's the processing. So Climate Trace responded to this, to this research that was done on them, and they said the study was based on an older version of its city level data that contained a bug, right? So they flat out admitted there was an error in their programming, and according to Climate Trace, the problem affected how road transportation emissions were being assigned at the city level, which made some local estimates look much lower than they should have been. So, their formal response was, we've identified the bug, we've corrected it, we've updated the database, and after the fix, the current road emission estimates are much closer to Vulcan's numbers, roughly within 6 to 7%, which I guess is acceptable at that point. This is interesting, right? Because the headline makes it sound like there was malfeasance, or data was being hidden or whatever.
And that Al Gore was doing it on purpose.
Yeah, and that Al Gore, who was like pulling
name,
strings or whatever, like that could be the most absurd interpretation. But again, people will come to that. Why else would they put his name in the title then?
People believed in Pizzagate. People believed in QAnon.
Jay, I remember I got happy when I found out that they underpredicted instead of over-predicting. Because if you were trying to be slimy and say, look, climate change is real when you knew it wasn't, you would over-predict. You would make it worse, right? So that kind of error was like, okay, good. It made me happy that it was an under-prediction because it's less obviously, this, intentional.
But Bob, they can play it both ways.
It has worse outcomes for humanity.
I've seen climate change deniers work those kind of errors both ways, right? Saying,
Sure,
we were
I believe
over predicting. They say, see, they were cheating. If you're under predicting, say, oh, see, it's not happening, so they have to goose the numbers now. Now they're pretending like they were under predicting.
Yeah, oh yeah,
yeah, they'll play it both sides.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure.
But this is a very different, story than saying that the data is wrong and there was actual malfeasance, which, that's what the takeaway is with titles like that. People are going to look for that type of conclusion.
Yeah. What other industries do you see that, especially those that have been deeply politicized, do you see that systematically happening where the researchers or the interested parties say, oh, we found an error. Ooh. Thanks for pointing that out.
Right, exactly.
We want to do better.
And look, no, we're not saying that science functions perfectly in every organization everywhere around the world all the time. It doesn't, and it's far from doing that. But science, when it's performed correctly and when all the rules are applied and all of the methodology is there, it works. And we have the test of time here because science always works over time, right? It does have a very strong self-correcting nature to it that makes it so eventually these things get figured out.
All right, thanks, Jay. All right, Bob, tell me, how many minutes should I be exercising every week?
Oh, yes, please. I want to know if I'm doing enough.
A lot. Okay, let's go through this.
I think if the question is, are we doing enough? The answer is no.
Yeah,
I do. Wait, Bob. I want to
define enough.
I go to gymnastics. I do at least 4 hours of gymnastics a week. At least. That's on a not great week. Sometimes it's 6. Am I doing enough?
It depends on your goals and probably. But let's see what this study said though. Okay. So this was a new large observational study showing that the current public health recommendations that we may have all heard of, 150 minutes, right, of moderate to vigorous physical activity per week, it may be more of a bare minimum than we might have even have thought. So this study suggests that if your goal is cardiovascular risk reductions, right, to be specific, the benefits may continue well beyond that initial 150 minutes. It may continue, get this, possibly into the 560 to 610 minutes per week range. That's 80 to 90 minutes per day. So that was kind of their takeaway. This kind of pissed me off, but let's go through these details.
That's
here.
a lot.
It's a lot. So these are from researchers based in 5 institutions, all in China and Macau. The study is based on, this is important, this is the UK Biobank, which is a large, huge British health research database. 500,000 adults aged between 40 and 69. And this study was published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine. Okay, so let's break down what this was all about. So this all starts, like I said, with this biobank, right? Researchers mined this huge database to find study-appropriate, study subjects. So in a lot of ways, this is like a database archaeology than anything else, because this has already existed with lots of information. So they really didn't even, all they did was mine that data and then evaluate the data is ultimately what they did. So with 500,000 people in there, as you might imagine, there was a lot of winnowing, there was a lot of filtering out. So of those 500,000 people, 100,000 wore motion sensors on their wrists for 7 consecutive days back when they were added to the database years ago. So they wore the motion sensor, and that is actually kind of a big deal, wearing a motion sensor to determine activity, because a lot of studies like this, they use self-reporting, right? And that is, Steve, you will agree, notoriously overestimations. People are horrible at relating, like, how active are you? How much time do you spend, working out, all this stuff. So having something that's much more objective, having the sensor on their wrist for 7 days, I like that fact that that didn't rely on self-reporting so much like so many other similar studies. So there's that. So that was a critical thing that they were looking for. They wanted these people, and that was 100,000 of them. Some of these people, a subset of the 100,000, had also done these stationary bike tests that were they weren't like maximal, like go until you can't do it anymore. It was sub-maximal, but they did these tests, and they did that to get an estimate of the VO2 max. And we actually discussed VO2 max recently. It's essentially, there's a lot of ways to describe this, but it's one way to describe it is a measure of how efficiently your body gets, transports, and uses oxygen for these sustained physical efforts. So if you have a higher VO2 max, you could interpret that as being more fit. Absolutely. Apparently, they use this as a way to give an estimate on cardiorespiratory fitness. So there was also, each person also had lots of other data, lots of other potentially confounding data as well, I might add, but smoking status, alcohol consumption, health and diet data, the body mass index, heart rate, blood pressure, et cetera, et cetera. So they got all these people. When it was all said and done, they ended up with 17,088 people, a decent chunk of people. Now, keep in mind, I want to reiterate this. This is an observational study. This means that cause and effect are a lot harder to nail down because the researchers are essentially just sitting back in a sense and watching what the real life behavior was. And they're not randomly assigning people to exercise groups and things like in a clinical trial. So observational data, observational studies are limited in that way. And then there was the follow-up. These people were followed for up to like 8 years. And, how did they fare over those 8 years? How many cardiovascular events were there? And they found 1,233 cardiovascular events in these 17,000 plus people. So that included mostly atrial fibrillations, 874 of them. That was kind of the biggest thing. But they also found 156 myocardial infarctions or heart attacks. They found 111 heart failures and 92 stroke events in these 17,000 people over about roughly 8 years. So this is kind of all the data. This is the data that they correlated it into something like a cardiovascular risk map. Steve and Kara, I'm curious if you've heard of this before. They used something that piqued my interest. They used Mendelian randomization. The idea behind Mendelian randomization was that as we know, nature randomly deals everyone a different set of genetic cards, right? You have a genetic hand, right? So some genetic markers that people have are associated with being more active or having higher fitness or just more fit, higher cardiorespiratory fitness. If people dealt those cards also have a lower heart risk, that makes the fitness heart health connection look more causal, not just a lifestyle coincidence, right? So they're correlating these markers with and trying to show the connection between lower heart risk and greater fitness. Because if they can show that the fitter you are, the better your heart health is, then that kind of makes it more of a causal relationship instead of just like, it could be explained by other confounding factors. I don't know if I'm describing.
Do they have access to the gene markers?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. From the biobank.
Right. Oh yeah. So when they're kind of correlating all of this data and trying to come up with the conclusions, this was factored in just to make the observational study a little bit more causal. It's never going to be really as solidly causal as something where you're assigning people and it's double blind and all that stuff. But this is just to help it to be a little bit more rigorous. So that's kind of one of the things that they did that I thought was interesting. It's important to mention the limitations of the study. The researchers admit that the study group that they used, the 17,000 people, they could have been healthier and fitter than the general population. That's a possibility that they didn't investigate or rule out or anything, I guess.
But there's no reason to believe that, right?
No.
Okay.
No, they just say that they could have been healthier and fitter than the general population, which would skew their results a little bit. So that's one of the limitations that they didn't have an answer for necessarily. So that's just a limitation. Like another example here is that they did not measure how sedentary these people were, or how much exercise did you do that was less vigorous, than others. So this wasn't a perfect study, obviously. And I'm just trying to list some of these limitations to the study. And also, one thing that I noticed that the VO2 max was estimated; it wasn't directly measured, because to directly measure VO2 max, it's harder. You got to feed them the air or the oxygen as they're working out, and every tiny bit of it is measured and it's not lost to the atmosphere in the room. So it's a little bit harder to do a real VO2 max test, which they did not do in this study. So they just kind of estimated it from that submaximal life, exercise bike thing that they did. So that's another limitation of this study. And if they do it again, maybe they could try to get this information. But I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, so now the study conclusions. And I wanted to say here that I rarely get pissed off when I read study conclusions, but this one pissed me off. It was just very frustrating. Not that like, oh, it's stupid or wrong. It's just like, damn, I didn't know that. What the hell have I been doing? All right, this is a direct quote from their paper. The current guideline of 150 minutes per week offers a universal but modest safety margin of approximately 8 to 9% risk reduction, whereas achieving a larger relative risk reduction greater than 30% appears to require activity volumes 3 to 4 times higher than current max minimums across fitness strata. So my take on that is that 150 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous exercise is only associated with an 8 to 9% risk reduction of those cardio events. So to me, you're 150 a week and you're getting only 8 to 9% reduction of those things that I mentioned, the atrial fibrillations, but also the strokes and the heart attacks and all that nasty stuff. So an 8 to 9%, that just seems like a lot less than I thought it would have been if you were doing, say 150 to 250 minutes a week. It seems a lot smaller. So that's one of the reasons why I was frustrated. To get the risk reduction that I assumed I was fairly close to getting already, I would have to double what I'm doing now. And that's where my frustration came in. It's like, oh my God, I thought I was doing some good cardio here, and now I've got to double it, double or triple what I've been doing to get the effect that I thought I was already getting based on this study. But that was just my immediate kind of knee-jerk, annoyed Bob reaction. So after reading more research and some time to think about it, I think is a better takeaway to this study. If you come across it, if you want to even read about it online, it was really interesting. So the 150-minute per week guideline is not wrong. It's important because it gets you in the game, right? It has real tangible benefits, and there's far, far too many Americans, and I think probably people throughout the world, that don't reach that goal. They don't do 150 minutes of activity, at least moderate activity every week. So this is an important goal for a lot of people. So
did they define moderate activity?
I know what the standard definition of moderate activity is. It's enough to get your heart rate up, but you could still talk while you're doing it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's a good way to
severe, rigorous exercise is like you're too out of breath to talk, significantly.
Right.
Okay.
It's important to understand and to stress that what this study is saying, or what the study is reinforcing, is that 150 minutes a week is the floor. That is not the ceiling.
But overall, it sounds like this is good news. It basically just means that there isn't as much of a ceiling on the benefit of regular exercise as we thought there was. So you could do even better. So just do as much as you can. And if you could do more, there's more benefit to it. But we do have to emphasize the caveat that this is an observational correlational research.
Yep.
And
it's a big study, and a lot of it is in sync with other smaller studies. And there's ways this study could be even better. And I don't think because of this, public health agencies should start saying everyone needs 10 hours a week. That would absolutely backfire. I mean,
people would just say, I'm never going to get that, so I won't even try.
Oh my God, because 10 hours a week is just way too much. That's like talking to a new skeptic and going right for their heart in terms of like, God doesn't exist. Like, whoa, take it easy, slow down. You got to teach them, the skeptical mindset before you jump down their throat with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That minimum is like, if you do the 150 minutes a week, that's kind of where the benefits start. If you could do more, great. But
if I put it in a sentence, it would be 150 minutes is a meaningful minimum, but the benefit curve does not stop there.
All right, thanks, Bob. Evan, do birds really fear women more than men?
Well, if you read the headlines, you might be led to think.
What?
Once again, we have a baffle of scientists making headlines, literally.
Baffle.
Here's the headline that I came across. Why are city birds more afraid of women than men? Scientists are baffled. Of course they are.
On.
The actual research paper is titled Sex Matters. European urban birds flee approaching women sooner than approaching men. This was published in the British Ecological Society's journal titled People and Nature. Researchers examined flight initiation distance. That means it's how close a human can get before a bird flies away.
I am extremely familiar with that distance.
So I was going to ask Steve if you've had any practical
oh my God,
firsthand
that's every birding experience, right? So when I see a bird, for example, I want to take a picture of. First, I take a picture. Then I get a little bit closer, take another picture, and I keep doing that until it flies away. And it's remarkably consistent how close you can get to birds before they fly away.
Does it matter the bird?
It really doesn't. I mean, sure.
A fledgling pigeon will let you walk right up to it. They're real dumb.
Yeah, there are some exceptions, but for most wild birds, like ones that are not massively acclimated to humans, it is remarkably similar.
Did you ever think there could be a difference between, say, a man and a woman approaching the same bird?
Never even occurred to me.
No, nor I. Which is why this headline kind of reached out and grabbed me.
I would also think if there were a difference, it would be in the other direction.
Well, that's
like that women would be like better at skulking, like we'd be like lighter on our feet.
That was the prediction the researchers made, Kara, going into it, and then it yielded the opposite result, which is one of the things they were like, "Ooh, that's interesting." Researchers observed 37 urban bird species across 5 European countries and found that, on average, birds let male observers get about 1 meter closer than female observers before fleeing. So, on average, women observers, the birds fled at about 8.5 meters. For men, it was 7.5 meters. And, that's a pretty straightforward behavioral metric in a sense. You have a researcher, you walk towards the bird, controlled pace, measure how close you get, bird flies away. Straightforward, right? But of course, many headlines that have covered the news item, they were implying that birds somehow recognize human gender and have developed maybe a preference against women. That's really not what the study demonstrated. A little more nuanced than that. Here are some details from the paper. There were 2,701 bird approaches that were analyzed. Again, 37 bird species, 5 European countries, 8 observers in total, 4 of which were men and 4 were women. And of course, flight initiation distance, FID. Of course, the key metric here. And the researchers they attempted to control for the person's height, their clothing, their hair visibility. And of course, there were other factors involved, the size of a flock. They were approaching a flock of birds, the sort of vegetation that was nearby. Species relatedness, land use variables was another category.
And I was very interested to read that they told them how to walk, which of course, birders learn how to approach birds too. You know what the key factor is?
Slow pace.
Slow pace.
Low?
Nah, not really.
Noise?
Well, it's given that you're
Smooth.
trying to be quiet.
Smooth, like not.
No, you actually want to do it in fits and starts. Like you don't want to do it all at once. You want to take a few steps and stop.
Oh.
Take a few steps, but also you never go directly at them. You zigzag. You're tacking towards them. So it's slow, few steps at a time, never directly at the bird.
Interesting.
So I don't know exactly what they told them to do, but they did say that they made them walk the same way because that does matter.
They don't know why this pattern, and it is a pattern, appears. They're left scratching their heads. Hence
And they're
the baffled part.
they're sure it's a pattern of male versus female and not just 2 or 3 researchers versus 2 or 3 other researchers.
Well,
because
it was
they only
kind
had
of a
8
small
researchers.
sample, right? I mean,
Exactly.
we're only talking about 8, and that's one of the big limitations.
Yeah, so like if Joe always made them fly, or like Sally always made them fly, and Joe was like really good at approaching birds, that would have skewed the data.
Could have, yeah, because you are dealing with the numbers here are too small, and the researchers acknowledge that they definitely did.
Maybe women remind birds of children,
Oh, that's interesting.
and maybe children are terrifying to birds because they're unpredictable. I know my dog barks at small children all the time, no matter what. Because all of his interactions with small children have been terrifying to him.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, okay.
They do things like poke them in the eyes randomly.
Exactly.
Oh, great. But is that like across? Do all dogs have a similar?
No, my
reaction
friend has a
going
small
on.
child, and her dog does not care what she does to him.
Oh yeah, right. I've seen some videos of dogs. You're right. The children will crawl all over them. The dog will just lay there and take it.
And I'm always
basically.
like, this is bad that your dog puts up with so much, because the next dog your kid comes across will not.
And like I said, they expected that it was going to be the opposite result here. And I think the main thing was that they may have thought that birds might fear men more due to historical hunting patterns. That was one of the things they speculated, but they really can't pinpoint it. Here's what they said. We found that male birds were more risk tolerant than females, and unexpectedly, birds in general escape sooner when approached by women than men. And again, it was a 1 meter distance on average. We discussed various hypotheses to explain birds' escape responses related to the observer's sex. However, further research is necessary to fully understand the phenomenon. And when they're saying sex, it's important to understand that it's an operational framing as opposed to associated with the observers themselves. It's not some proof that birds conceptually recognize human gender categories, right?
Yeah.
So that's the subtlety there. Behavioral ecology, small effects, hidden and confounding factors. They're often difficult to untangle. So this is by no means robust. It's interesting. And of course, and like Jay was talking about with his news item, you make a sensational headline out of that, people are going to stop, and take a second look at it, to read the product, and it does work. It definitely does, because it just I don't know, it just jumped off the page at me like, what, are you kidding?
Evan, did you emphasize that this is city birds?
I
he
did
said
say
urban,
city
yeah.
birds, yeah.
Yeah,
urban.
so these are birds that would have a lot of contact with humans, and I think that may be meaningful here. Though they didn't do a comparison to rural birds or suburban birds, but it does make it at least semi-plausible that these birds are learning something about human behavior. We know that birds could recognize like individual people, and so it's not implausible that they just, on average, women, I don't know, they might walk more faster or be more likely to want to feed them and therefore go right at them or something, whatever. There might be some behavioral difference that the birds are learning, and that's
Maybe.
but
My guess is it doesn't matter that they did thousands of approaches when there were only 8 people.
people.
doing
It could
the
be-
approaches.
It's too small.
It
It's too
does
small. It's
seem
4 versus 4.
artifactual. It does seem artifactual, but it would be very interesting if they followed up with more and different researchers, people, and see if it's consistent. Before we speculate too much on why this is, we have to prove that it is an actual phenomenon. And we're not
Also,
there
like-
yet with this one study.
These are bird researchers, right?
Yeah.
You're so right, Steve. Like a lot of urban birds, especially like corvids, they remember people.
Yeah.
Like individual people. So if these bird researchers have ever done any naturalistic bird research before, these encounters might have been with birds that know them.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting.
There's a lot of birds.
Yeah,
but you're
but there's
right,
also,
Carrie, it can't be ruled out. It can't be
yeah,
ruled
it's
out.
like there's a lot of bias when you're only dealing with 8 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, interesting. It'd be interesting to see if there's any follow-up study on this. This is, again, one of those ones we have to keep on our radar, either positive or negative. I'd be very interested to see if this replicates.
Yeah.
But
And
until
of course,
it does, it's hard to take it too seriously.
And it's hard not to think of you, Steve, when I see a bird science news item, of course. Like, ooh, Steve's going to like this one.
Okay, guys, have you heard about the latest Ebola outbreak?
A little bit, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I did.
it hasn't been that much in the news.
I've been seeing it a lot in like the science news.
yeah, I
I guess
think
if you're reading
reported
science news
daily.
regularly.
Definitely if you're reading science news. You
Yeah.
know, mainstream news, it's not front page. You know,
Right.
it is enough that we should be like, okay, let's see what's going on here. But there's really 2 stories here. The first story is about the outbreak itself, which is happening in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, also in Uganda. It is a species of Ebola, the Bundibugyo species, which is a rarer one. And while it's less deadly than the Zaire and some of the other ones, it's also
Sudan,
it's also one that does not have a vaccine and does not have any specific antiviral treatment. So it's supportive care only. And we're getting, I read different numbers, and although everyone says these numbers are definitely an underestimate, like we are not capturing all of them, but I'm reading numbers between 800 and 1,000 cases and 75 to 100 deaths. So we're kind of at that level, which is a big outbreak for Ebola.
Yeah, but nowhere near the what we have seen in the past 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, we've had some big outbreaks in the last 10 or 15 years. Before that, this would have been
thousands, many times more than what we're seeing right now.
But we're we're cracking 1,000 with this. So this is getting into, again, one of the bigger ones. Prior to that, like a 40 or 50 people, like that's an outbreak. Now we're like, it's routine that it's hundreds and cracking 1,000. But, and in the DRC, this is their 14th recorded Ebola outbreak. I should mention that this is not a disease that we have the ability to eradicate because it has a lot of animal vectors. So it just basically exists in the jungle, and every now and then it's going to break out into the human population. What's the risk for the general public? Well, the World Health Organization has now recently declared this a health emergency of international concern. That phrase may sound familiar to you, like that was, you may have heard that in the early days of COVID-19. This is not going to be another COVID-19. Let me just say that up front, right?
Yeah, it won't.
Oh, no.
Because this is, Ebola is transmitted through direct fluid contact. One of the big concerns is burial practices, right? Or healthcare workers who are treating these people. So people who are in direct contact with patients or bodies. But it's still, it can spread enough that you can get an epidemic that is continuing to spread. The last DRC Ebola outbreak, how long do you think it took before it ended? Like the World Health Organization said it's over.
Like from the first
case to the last case, what was the duration of the last
years?
4 months?
2 years. 2 years.
2 years. Yeah, it would have to be.
Holy
years.
crap.
Yeah,
Because we're talking a lot of times people in very remote places. It's very difficult to get these healthcare services to them, and pockets, like, they fester. They pop up, they fester, they spread.
Yeah, so this is like they're getting them every few years, and they're lasting, can last up to a couple of years. So like they're almost continuously in one Ebola outbreak or another. Obviously, there's time in between, but I mean, you know what I mean? It's pretty regular.
And this one is about what do they say, 25 to 45% mortality rate, which is pretty high.
That's horrible.
But nothing could be, but Ebola Zaire is up to 90%.
Yeah, but you've got to remember that one has become significantly more well-studied, and we have better treatments for it.
Yeah.
25 to 40% with nothing but supportive care is terrifying.
Terrible.
That's not good, man.
Yeah. And that means that also if people were inoculated already against the other ones. They don't have any, it doesn't confer any benefit.
Right.
I don't think
Is
so.
that
Right.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awful. And also talk about like public health trust in very remote regions where people, were painstakingly reached out, convinced to get these vaccines, and then all of a sudden, why am I still dying of
Right.
Ebola then?
Yeah, so in the DRC, there's a few issues. Right? One is the extremely remote areas, hard to get aid to, but also there's conflict happening in the region right now,
Yeah.
so it's not a safe place to be, and they're very resource poor. So it's kind of like a perfect storm, of not where we do not want to have this kind of simmering outbreak happening, especially with a virus as deadly as any of the Ebola
Right.
variants. But this one,
Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes that they made was when they did the initial testing. They said, "Hey, man, let's make sure this isn't Ebola." They did a test, but they tested basically for Ebola Zaire and maybe Sudan. They did not test for this specific variant, and so they got back a negative. And they're like, "Okay," so they basically lost about a month, which was a critical month. I don't think we'd be anywhere near as bad as it is now if they just did that test initially.
the size of these outbreaks is mostly determined by how big of a village or town or city they get into. You get one person getting into a bigger, like a small city or a big town, and suddenly it jumps by an order of magnitude in terms of the spread. So it's a risk. And of course, that can keep happening, and especially in any cities with distant travel. This is how patients wound up in the United States, in whatever that was, 10, 15 years ago, in one of those outbreaks.
Yeah, and the healthcare workers themselves can be, luckily they have
Completely.
more, education and better at, preventive measures, but at the same time, they become vectors sometimes because they're entering into locations that they wouldn't have otherwise been in, and moving around. And what a way to go, too. This is such a...
It's
such
a horrible way to die.
violent- Yeah,
So that's one of the stories, right? The other story is our response to this outbreak and why it is not good.
Are we even having a response?
Well, yeah, there is a response. Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
from our government?
so the U.S. is responding, the World Health Organization is responding, the CDC is responding, and local organizations are responding. But the response is way too little. And it is disorganized and ineffective. There's a good article written by some infectious disease specialists called Panic, Neglect, Repeat. The 2026 Ebola outbreak shows us we must change the pattern for global pandemic preparedness and response. Basically making the case that we are less prepared for this Ebola outbreak than we were for the previous one. We are getting worse.
Surprise me.
Partly because, and so what are the reasons for that? Part of it is because of COVID-19. We're still experiencing a backlash against public health measures and trust in science, trust in the governments, trust in public health measures, and that is hampering everything. But
But what about we completely defunded USAID?
100%. So the far bigger factor here is we've gotten rid of the USAID, right? It's basically completely defunded it. And that's a huge problem, because even if we give money to this effort, like the United States is always the critical partner in any of these kinds of outbreaks because we have the most resources, right? And that's not just money, but actual lots of relevant resources. We're
aid workers, lots of
we're
access
critical
to
here.
medication.
Experience.
So in previous outbreaks, when USAID was up and running, we could say, okay, here's all the resources that you need, not only money, but vaccines and medicine and protective equipment and all the things that you need to get control over an outbreak like this. And we had organizations and people on the ground with connections to organizations and people in the region to immediately put those things to work. Now, all of those connections are gone. They are gutted. They don't exist anymore. So we don't even have the ability to do the kinds of things that we could have done just 2 years ago because all of that infrastructure is gone. So we say, okay, well, it's the World Health Organization's responsible. And yes, they were slow and they're not doing enough, but we just cut their funding by pulling out of the World Health Organization. They had to fire 2,000 people. And so they're underfunded. They're under-resourced. USAID is gone. The CDC is being cut back, is much smaller in resources than it was at the time. And we don't have any of the infrastructure in place that we should have. So this is what these
who could have predicted this, Steve?
Right? I mean, it's insane.
What
it's
a surprise.
Like who?
Wow.
How can somebody look at disaster preparedness and go, they're just sitting around doing nothing. What a waste of money.
Yep.
And then a disaster happens. They're like, oh, that's why they were sitting around.
Yeah,
like,
it's not my fault.
Oh, my God.
I mean, 10 years ago, I remember we were talking about whatever the Ebola outbreak was at that time.
Yeah.
And somebody characterized it as saying, this is like building the firehouse when the fire's going.
Right.
It's like, no, you gotta build the firehouse first, then you activate them when the fire is reported.
This is worse. It's like tearing it down after the fire.
Yeah, we just tore down the fire. Whatever fire, it was inadequate, but whatever we did have, we just tore it down.
Oh,
absolutely. Now, of course, the government denies all that. They say, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. But the people on the ground are like, no, this is all bullshit. We are gutted. We do not have the resources. We cannot adequately respond to this. And with outbreaks like this, it matters how quickly and how robustly you can get the resources in place. You could do the testing. You could do the contact tracing. You can police the borders. You could do all the things that you have to do. You need to stand this up quickly, because if you don't, it gets out of your control. It spreads. It spreads beyond where you want it to be. Then you're fighting this losing battle against a spreading contagious disease, right? So that's the position that we're now in.
And the thing too that we forget, it's not just about like actual death and disability, right? Because this disease is horrific. The 40% or however many that are going to die. The people who don't die from it are going to have, permanent problems because of this. But it's also that the longer that we allow certain infections, especially zoonotic infections, to rage in humans, the longer we allow them to mutate.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they have figured out how to do well in a human population and we don't act, the longer that they get better at infecting people.
Right. Ugh. And the greater the chance of it busting out, right? Of it getting, somebody going into a town that then causes another outbreak and then it gets spread to a big whatever. The greater the chance that it can break out.
Yeah, we all saw that movie.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we've been covering Ebola outbreaks for the last 20 years and nothing has changed, or it's worse. Whatever lessons we had learned and people that we were putting in place have all been torn down in the last year. And then while the government's pretending like everything's great, we're just handling it all fine, but it's all nonsense. That's not what the people on the ground are saying.
Because we did have robust infrastructure in place. Like
we did we have the playbook. No one's using it.
It could have been a situation where we see these isolated cases, they pop up, the people get quarantined, they get the help they need, and then move along. The way this is always going to happen.
Yeah. And so, but the key here is, again, the panic, neglect, repeat, right? We're in the panic mode. Once this falls off the headlines, is everyone going to forget about it? And the bottom line is we're not going to be ready for the next outbreak, which could become an epidemic, which could become a pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. So we have not really learned anything from COVID-19. In fact, we're worse because of the pushback after it, All right, let's move on. Jay, choose that noisy time.
All right, guys, last week I played this noisy. Any guesses?
Sounds like baby seals barking.
All right. Well, a listener named Jonathan Ketora wrote in and said, Jay, listening to the SGU on my way back from a winery visit, my wife and kids and I all thought we were listening to a bird, but couldn't agree on which one. So the 11-year-old, I guess his nickname is Johnny Danger, guessed a pigeon. His wife guessed a puffin, and he's thinking it's a chicken. These are incorrect. But when I listen to it, I guess I can hear that in there, you know. But it's more important that you tried than if you succeed, I think, for most things. Good try. Keep trying. I'll see you next time. Let's move on to the next guest, Michael Blaney, who sends in lots of guesses over here. He said, sounds like a flock of baby geese. So that's 4 different birds that have been guessed so far, all incorrect. Another listener named Martin wrote in and said, Jay, I have to admit I can never get the noisy right, but this time I'm 100% sure it's the squeaky sound of my running shoes that gets made on the floor when I go in for an early morning run and try not to wake anyone at home. And then he tells me this story about how he forgets something and he has to sneak in. His wife is sleeping and he wakes her up with the squeaky noise. It's a good guess, but it is not correct. These are not running shoes. Lots of people guessed this one correctly. That's why I don't have any more examples to show you. There was lots of repeat guesses. Lots of people guessed birds too. But there was one person who guessed correctly first, and this is Kevin Bland. And Kevin said to Who's That Noisy? This week's Who's That Noisy is people. It's people, guys. Mm-hmm. What are they doing?
They're walking.
Walking on what?
In the snow.
They're walking in sand.
Sand.
It's coarse and it gets everywhere.
It does. It's a big pain in the ass. So what's happening here?
Too.
Why is this particular sand? Let me play it again and I'll tell you the description. Okay. Why is walking on sand making that particular noise?
Wet.
Lots of people walk on
wet.
sand.
Quicksand.
It's not wet. It's very dry. So here's what happens.
Dry.
And I guess they call it singing sand as well. It happens when your foot compresses and shears very dry sand, making grains rub and slip past each other at the same time. So it's important that lots of sand, grains of sand rub against other grains of sand at the same time. And under the right conditions, those tiny grain movements synchronize enough to create a sound that you can hear. And it's often a squeak, a chirp, a bark, or a whistle. These are all different words that people use. And people from around the world wrote in and told me, I know exactly what that is. So it's not just one beach somewhere. Now I don't know if the grains need to be of a certain size or whatever, but I think they need to be a similar size and they need to be rounded and smooth. And they're often made of quartz and silica. Mm-hmm. So there you have it, guys. It's just sand.
Whoa.
All right. So that was cool. I've known of this phenomenon. I don't think I've used it on the show before, but it is possible. We have been doing this for 20 years, but that was cool. All right, I have a new noisy for you guys this week. The noisy was sent in by a listener named Rick Downing, and here it is. That's all you got.
That was Grogu, who has not had snacks in a week.
That's a Star Wars reference, Kara.
Oh, okay.
Guys, we've been doing the podcast for 21 years, coming up on 21 years.
We're past 21.
We are past our 21st year.
Yeah, we've completed 21 years.
Wow.
So we do this for a reason. We want to educate people on critical thinking. We want them to understand what skepticism is. We want them to understand why it's so important and why is it more important now today, I think, than ever in modern human history because of what's going on in many places around the world. If you want to support the work that we do, if you find value in this, please consider becoming a patron of the Skeptics Guide. You can go to patreon.com/Skeptics Guide for more information, and we would appreciate any support that you're willing to give. The next conference we're going to be at is PsyCon. This is happening June 11th to 14th. So how many weeks is it from when this show airs for us, Steve?
2 weeks.
3?
2 weeks. All right, so it'll be 2 weeks. So this is happening in Buffalo, New York. You can go to CSICONFERENCE.org for more information. It's a wonderful conference. We're going to be doing a live SGU podcast, and then a ticketed event that same night, which is Friday. We will be doing our Skeptical Extravaganza with George Robb. It's going to be a really great weekend. You have lots of great things to see. We hope to see you there. And then after that, guys, we are going on our giant, SGU mini tour. It's a giant mini tour. It's going to be LA, then it's going to be Sydney, and then it's going to be Christchurch in New Zealand. It's going to be a really great time. I am going crazy prepping and doing all my final preparations for this trip. If you're interested in joining us at any one of these 3 conferences, the LA conference, you can go to theskepticsguide.org. When I say conference, it's going to be the following. So Friday night, we're going to have our SGU secret meetup. This is a low number attendance event where you'll have a lot of FaceTime with the SGU. These are a ton of fun. You can get tickets for that on theskepticsguide.org under our events page. If you want to go to see us do a Nauticon conference in Sydney, Australia, you can go to nauticoncon.com. That's not a con. It's the same word, con. CONCON.com. Or you can go to skepticon.org.au to buy tickets for that and see what tickets we have left. A lot of the tickets have sold out, but you can still go to the main conference and still attend a couple of the other shows that we're doing. And if you want to see us in New Zealand, you can go to conference.skeptics.nz, and we will also be doing an extravaganza that same weekend, so you can buy another ticket for that if you're interested. So we hope to see you guys. This was it. It's all happening now. This next time that we talk to you, one of these events will no longer exist. So we really do hope to see you at one of them.
All right. Thanks, Jay. All right, guys, let's go on with science or fiction.
It's time for science or fiction.
Each week, I come up with 3 science news items or facts, 2 real, 1 fake. Then I challenge my panel of skeptics to tell me which one they think is the fake. We have a theme this week. The theme is obscure inventors. Okay, you ready?
Didn't we just do an obscure inventor one?
Not this year.
I guess I'm mixing up. There's like the peanut thing.
Yeah, that was totally different.
Oh, that was a Canada one.
That was Canada.
Yeah, Canada.
Sorry.
All right, item number 1. Swedish-American electrical engineer Gideon Sundbach perfected the zipper, revolutionizing modern apparel. Item number 2. English inventor Jonas Hanway invented the modern umbrella for use as a waterproof rain guard in the 1750s. And item number 3. Josephine Cochrane patented, manufactured, and sold the first successful mechanical dishwasher, her patent being issued in 1893. Okay, Kara, it's your turn to go first.
I mean, these are all just like dartboard questions, right?
Trivial Pursuit.
I know. It's like, can I reason through any of this? Is there something particularly Swedish about a zipper? I don't know. I'll buy that Josephine Cochrane patented, manufactured, and sold the first successful mechanical dishwasher.
Why?
Because she's a woman. And I think only a woman who washes dishes all day would have been like, I need to make a
Necessity
machine
is the
so
mother
I
of
don't have to do this. But there may be something there where like she didn't actually do the patent, or she, I don't know, somebody else like sold it and stole all her money. But I'm hoping that she actually got paid for this. So I'm going to say that one's science. So I guess it's between the Swedish-American electrical engineer Gideon Sundbach, who perfected the zipper, did not invent it, but perfected it, because before it, I don't know, it just got stuck all the time. But now we can have a hoodie. I'm wearing one right now. Or Jonas Hanway, English inventor, who invented the modern umbrella for use as a waterproof rain. Okay, so maybe the year, well, there aren't even years in all of them, so I can't even compare that. 1750 for a modern umbrella. What makes it modern? Like that it opens? That it's actually waterproof? I feel like umbrellas have been around a lot longer than 1750, so I'll say that one's the fiction. I don't know.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah, my problem with Josephine Cochrane is that, you know, the year 1893, and she was allowed to patent, manufacture, and sell something.
Yeah.
I hope it's true, but after doing so many superheroes of science, I mean, it's just like I'm very skeptical of that one. Mm-hmm. Sure, there's ways that, there's so little detail here. She could have been partners with somebody, some guy probably, but I hope she didn't need that. But it just seems like 18. I mean, they couldn't even get, women had the hardest time getting any degrees in school at that time. But patenting and manufacturing and selling are kind of different. So I don't know. But yeah, I get this modern umbrella thing. It seems like 1750s is, not a good, a good date for that. Probably earlier, it seems. But, and the only thing I could say about the zipper is that, I've read about the zipper, the invention of the zipper so long ago that I just barely remember anything about what I read. But Gideon Sunbeck doesn't even ring the tiniest little bell. But who knows? It's been, I don't remember who the inventor was. It could have been him, and I just forgot the name. Yeah, I think I'd just go with the umbrella. It's 1750s. It just seems like not a good date for that invention. Probably earlier, but it's a pretty simple device. So, yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Kara. These are like, it's hard to like try to find something in here that you can be like, no, whatever. But these are all fun, though. Okay, so I like that Kara said that Josephine Cochrane, I like thinking that a woman invented the dishwasher. So I'm going to just say sure with that one. The thing about the umbrella, Kara, I agree with you, is, are you telling me that people that lived before the 1750s didn't say, what? I'm walking out in the freaking rain. Like, what could I do to not have the rain hit me? Like, is that like can't have started in the 1750s? Because, I think it's kind of universal that being out in the cold rain kind of sucks. I don't care when you were born, like it's, so 1750 sounds like really way too late in the game. Yeah, so I think that's the only one I can kind of build an argument for. So I'm going to agree with Kara.
Okay, and Devin.
Why would a Swedish-American electrical engineer perfect a zipper? There seems to be a disconnect there. Unless I'm missing something, zippers. What role would they have that an electrical engineer would have been interested maybe in trying to perfect that thing? Why? That's why that one's stumping me. But you made some maybe, good points about the umbrella being the other one. That's possibly fiction. I don't know. I want to go with, but it's kind of, it's easy to go with the umbrella. We're all in the same boat. We give Steve 2 chances out of 3 at a sweep. But if I go for electrical engineer and the zipper, that reduces his chance for a sweep, doesn't it?
It does.
But it
Playing
puts
Moneyball over here.
But my neck is out on the line with this one. I'll put my neck on the line. I'll say the electrical engineer and the zipper.
Oh, boy.
Is
Wow.
the fiction. I do not see the connection.
Good, bold move, Evan. I like it. All right. Let's start with number 3.
I'm so wrong.
Since you all agree on that one. Josephine Cochrane patented, manufactured, and sold the first successful mechanical dishwasher, her patent being issued in 1893. You guys all think this one is science, and this one is science. She did do it. Yay,
man.
good for her.
Josephine, hell
How'd you pull
yeah.
that off
Proud of you.
for the 1900s?
Well, her husband died. I think that's part of it. So she was on her own. But yeah, she was the goods, man. She patented it. She invented it. Other people had tried to invent a dishwasher prior to her, but they failed. They just mechanically did not work. And she came up with, they were trying to use scrubbers. She was the one who came up with the idea of using pressurized sprays of soapy water, basically the modern mechanism of a dishwasher. So she came up with that, and she freaking engineered it, built it, manufactured it, and sold it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Eventually, her company was sold to KitchenAid, which is now part of Whirlpool.
Wow. That's great.
But Kara, you said, yes, of course a woman invented it because she was trying to relieve herself of the drudgery of washing dishes.
Yeah.
But that wasn't her primary motivation. Although,
what was it?
Who knows, right? I'm just going on with the references. But she, first of all, was wealthy. She lived in a mansion. And apparently she got the idea after a dinner party when the servants chipped the nice china. And so she was looking for
Those damn servants.
a way to wash the dishes that would be more gentle than hand washing. But then this is from the Wikipedia article, also gives another reference that says, and she wanted to relieve housewives of the drudgery of washing dishes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we give her credit for that as well. But but she was a wealthy
but
Chicago.
She herself was not
socialite.
dishes.
That was probably why she also could afford to. She had the money to launch
to make
this
prototypes
herself. But she did it. I mean, she invented a working dishwasher, and it worked. And it basically has continuity to modern day Whirlpool dishwashers. It's interesting.
Very cool.
All right, we'll go backwards. English inventor Jonas Hanway invented the modern umbrella for use as a waterproof rain guard in the 1750s. Kara, Bob, and Jay, you think this one is the fiction. Evan, you think this one is science. So interesting that you guys think, oh yeah, umbrellas were around for a long time. But again, I said modern umbrella.
Yeah, how do you define that?
Hey, well, that's a good question. What defines the modern umbrella versus older versions of it? And waterproof. So you think they had waterproof umbrellas prior to the 1750s?
100% I think they had waterproof umbrellas before 1750.
So what elements of a modern umbrella do you think might reasonably date to the 1750s? For example, the collapsibility of it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or even if it wasn't collapsible, like the fact that it was like metal, maybe?
Yeah, the metal ribbing, the modern metal ribbing that keeps them from turning up in the wind, in a gust of wind, at least some of the time. So there was definitely significant improvements that could mark the modern umbrella that could reasonably date to the 1750s. But this one is the fiction.
Yay!
No one invented the umbrella, right? So I just wanted to pick something that nobody invented.
Someone had to.
No. The umbrella goes back at least 2,000 years, and it was a lot of iterations. No one could be said to have invented the umbrella. Just that, they started doing this at this time. So, and you're right, Kara. All you have to do is cover it with wax, right? Basically, and you make it waterproof. So the idea of waterproofing umbrellas in order to stave off the rain goes back a long time.
Yeah, it's not like everybody was just getting rained on in their houses all the time. They figured out how to waterproof things.
Yeah,
early on.
Yeah. So who was Jonas Hanway? This guy's an interesting character. He is associated with the umbrella. And around that time, 1750. But he was the first man in London to use an umbrella in public because umbrellas were considered to be a feminine accoutrement, right?
Because they were like parasols.
Yeah. This guy's like, screw that. I'm going to carry an umbrella and cover myself in the rain.
Good.
And he was mocked.
Yay.
He was mocked for that, ruthlessly until.
But everyone else was wet.
But he also
exactly.
But he was dry, and he eventually changed the behavior, changed the culture, so that it became acceptable for men to use umbrellas in public.
Thank you.
But,
Wow.
Now, I'm interested in this guy because he also had a lot of opinions, and some good, some not so good. So he was this real character Londoner at this time. He also was very anti-tea. He was an opponent of tea,
What is going on with this guy?
he thought was bad for your health. So I'm not with him on that one. And a lot of other things. There were some other ones.
In the days of bloodletting.
He was really ahead of his time in some ways. Not so much in other ways.
He was an eccentric.
But he was very confident in his masculinity, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He thought that tea drinking caused bad breath, ugliness, and weakened the nerves.
Well, it does kind of cause bad breath. Black tea does.
I mean, I imagine. Well, was tea in 1750 similar to what we're drinking today?
I think so.
Probably.
Black tea. I mean,
It's
it
the
was
same
already
plant.
imported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, same plant. You steep it, pretty much the same stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And my guess is that he wasn't talking about like green tea or herbal tea. He was probably talking about like traditional, like black tea.
So black tea, white tea, and green tea are all made from the same leaf, and they all have
but
caffeine. They're just oxidized for different lengths of time. And black Black tea, I think, has the most caffeine of the three, but they all do.
it's very
Herbal teas do
breathy.
not. They are other plants, but those
Yeah,
three.
they're not technically tea.
They're not technically tea. You have to call them herbal tea. But Hanway also lived into his 70s and never married. And looking at the picture of him holding an umbrella, I could kind of guess why.
Whoa.
I love him.
Yeah. So I think it was just an out there kind of guy. He's like, I'm going to use an umbrella. I don't care.
He was confident.
He's very confident.
In whatever his gender expression
Exactly.
was. And people caught on eventually,
Yeah.
and I dig it.
Yeah. All right, which means that Swedish-American electrical engineer Gideon Sundbach perfected the zipper, revolutionizing modern apparel is science. This guy did invent the zipper. He made it into a functional piece of apparel. He got it to work, you know what I mean? He perfected it. Not that he wasn't the first one with the idea, but nobody can make it really work before he did. So he's credited with basically inventing the zipper.
Okay.
Credited with the development of the zipper, many people put it. But yeah, he was an electrical engineer, but I think he did
And
a lot
he called
of...
it a zipper? Did he also invent the name?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Somebody had to come up with that name.
But he has the patent for it, basically. He has the patent for it.
That's
Oh,
impressive.
man. Can you imagine the world before zippers?
Yeah, this is the...
Buttons, baby.
Button.
Buttoning everything up.
How about Velcro?
Shoes.
Button up.
Velcro came a
Velcro's
little
even
bit later.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Well,
but
the
like,
Vulcans invented that.
imagine back when you had to lace up your shoe and button. They used to button their shoes.
Oh, yes.
Ugh.
That's crazy.
Crazy
I hate
talk.
buttons. I have a pet peeve with buttons.
So I occasionally wear button fly jeans, and they're okay. The thing about them is you can just rip them open. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You just pull them apart and the buttons all come undone. They're fine. I don't mind. It's only a couple buttons.
Yeah, you get good with buttoning up, you know.
Yeah.
Just boop, 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 boop.
But like a hoodie, I wouldn't want to have to button my sweatshirt
Yeah,
every time.
you don't want
I
like
love a zip
12
hoodie.
buttons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like
I
three or
went-
four, you know.
3 or 4 is okay.
I went to a wedding this
Three or
weekend.
four.
Yeah,
And of course, I wore a suit, right? And so it was the shirt. Let me tell you about buttons real quick. before I get to the quote. I took the shirt out of my closet, had to unbutton it to basically get it off the hanger, had to rebutton it again to pack it. When I got it out, when we arrived at our destination and I had to unpack it, I put it back on the hanger. I have to unbutton it in order to put it on myself and rebutton it to put it back onto me. Then I have to take it off by unbuttoning it, putting it back on the hanger again, and then buttoning it again before I repack it and then bringing it back home. I had to go 8 times. I had to unbutton or button the shirt to wear it once, and there's buttons on the cuffs, and there's buttons on the sleeves, and there's buttons on the collars. I fastened 58 buttons this weekend to wear a shirt one time. This is what I hate about buttons. You know how many days of my life I've probably wasted in buttoning things? It's probably a week. I will
boggles the
bet you
mind.
it's a
Wow.
week. I'll bet you it's a week.
and then to add insult to injury, you lose a zipper-based science or fiction. It's just I don't know how you stand it, Evan.
Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed in you.
I'm going to give you a consolation prize. You get to read the quote at the end of the show.
Appreciate that. Intelligence cannot be present without understanding. No computer has any awareness of what it does. Roger Penrose, back in supposedly 1989.
I would say
Said
definitely
this.
true at the time he said that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
at the time.
And now I guess it just depends on how you define
Does
the
it
word awareness.
Oh, right. Yeah. Does it
I still think it's probably true today, but this is an active question now, and 5 years, 10 years, who knows? The answer could be different.
Yeah, awareness is a very loaded word.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But we sometimes
Ambiguous.
we have all these current discussions of AI. It's every day, practically. Back in 1989, how many of us were really talking about awareness and computers? We were just starting to really learn.
I was.
It was
about
sci-fi.
what a modern computer was and what it could do, let alone any level of talking about its awareness. Maybe with HAL and 2001, but only in the context of movies and science fiction.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Some of us were, but not like now. Damn.
No, not like every day now.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining me this week.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Surely.
And until next week, this is your Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. Skeptic's Guide to the Universe is produced by SGU Productions, dedicated to promoting science and critical thinking. For more information, visit us at theskepticsguide.org. Send your questions to info@theskepticsguide.org. And if you would like to support the show and all the work that we do, go to patreon.com/skepticsguide and consider becoming a patron and becoming part of the SGU community. Our listeners and supporters are what make SGU possible.